Alright, guys, welcome to Flav Oriana's MMA show. I'm your host, Flav Oriana, brought to you by Four Corner Sports. Alright, guys, so this past Saturday we had UFC Vegas 36, headlined by Brunson versus Darren, the Gorilla Till. Now, guys, originally this card was supposed to be taking place not at the Apex Center, but it was supposed to be taking place at the O2 Arena in England. So, but obviously with COVID restrictions and everything else, that did not happen. So, they couldn't find anything, quick enough. So they just say, the safe thing was bring it back to the Apex Center and, just have the card there. But it was the early start time. It was supposed to be prime time for England. Luckily, the UFC kept their word. They did not change it to prime time for the United States. And, we got a good card. We actually had a good card. It was a bunch of English fighters that were on the card. You had Tom Aspinall, Darren Till. We had the debut of Paddy the Baddy Pimblett, which was great. We also had a couple of UFC veterans that were on the roster fighting. Alex Morono. We had Khalil Roundtree. We also had Julian Erosa versus Charles Jourdain, which that was a phenomenal fight. And then we also had the Pride of Wales, Jack Shore, making his return. We also had a fight pulled out of the card because of the fact that he had difficulties of making weight. Jonathan Martinez, I believe he ended up weighing in, instead of at 136 pounds, I believe he ended up weighing at 138 pounds. So with him having such a difficult time cutting down to, bantamweight, it resulted to him pulling out of the fight. I understand, like, if you're not healthy, if you're not ready to go for the fight, I would say pull out, only because you don't want to get inside that octagon and then, the fact that you're so drained out and fatigued from making that big weight cut, that's the reason why you end up losing the fight. Chael Sonnen has said it best. It's sometimes just best not to show up at all. All right, and that's what Jonathan Martinez did, and I believe he made the right decision. You hire a better nutritionist. Handle your weight better, and then we'll see you at the octagon pretty soon. But I wanted to talk about a couple of fights. All right. Yes, the Julian Rosa Charles Jourdain fight was phenomenal. All right. I believe Julian Rosa has one of the worst nicknames in MMA, Juicy J. That's terrible, but I really love that fight. I mean, that was like Jim Ross would say, that was a slobber knocker of a fight. All 3 rounds. It didn't go to his decision because Julian Rosa just doesn't believe in giving the judges any opportunity to determine who is the winner, and it ended up becoming of Julian Rosa making Charles Jourdain tap out via a Darce choke. But that was a phenomenal fight. Jack Shore looked great in his return. Him facing the fighter from the Ultimate Fighter on Team Ortega's camp. I can't really pronounce his name correctly. Luvidic Sholinin. I'm sorry if I'm butchering his name, but he ended up fighting him, the one who ended up beating Mitch Raposo in the Ultimate Fighter. I believe that was the first fight of the return of the Ultimate Fighter between Ortega and Volkanovski. Molly McCann, she makes her return. She gets a win for the first time since 2019, since that Boston card. She ends up beating on Ji Yeon Kim. Molly McCann ended up pulling out her inner Max Holloway, her with the head movement, shoulder rolling, and coming at the face of Kim, saying, "Come on, let's get it," and Molly McCann, gets a victory for the first time in almost 2 years, which is pretty remarkable of a long stretch. Though she would have had a victory by then, but getting into the main card. So the main card was phenomenal stuff because we had the debut of Paddy the Baddy Pimblett. Now, there's a lot of hype with this guy because of the fact that this guy used to fighting Cage Warriors. This guy, was a big deal in England. You had a bunch of kids, kids that are maybe like 7 or 8 years old, rocking Paddy the Baddy shirts. And look, I got like a big understanding on who he is when he ended up signing with the UFC in an interview that he had with Ariel Helwani. And then I started looking at some of the stuff that he had in Cage Warriors. I'm like, oh, this guy can, this guy's a pretty good fighter. This guy's a good grappler. But did he display any grappling really in this fight? No. He wanted to show his striking, which is phenomenal stuff. Because I would have thought that, he was going to grab Luigi Veradimi onto the floor and then try to like pull off an armbar or something crazy like that. But no, he really wanted to show his striking. Two things I kind of saw that he does wrong, right, in my opinion, but it works for him, is one, he keeps his hands low. He keeps his hands very low. He keeps them pretty much by his hips. I don't like that when a fighter does that, because of the fact that it takes a decent amount of time for you to pick up your hands and then bring them up to your chin to defend yourself, right? So you're leaving your body and your head wide open, all right? But I understand why he's doing that, because it creates different angles, and sometimes it's going to be hard for the fighter to pick up where these angles are coming from when you're throwing punches. So I totally understand that. But you're playing with a double cross sword, because of the fact that Paddy, did get hurt by Luigi. He did get rocked. And, at one point I was thinking maybe the fight was going to end early, and that would have definitely, really hurt Paddy the Baddy Pimblett, because of the fact that, the UFC is putting a lot of marketing into this guy. The UFC really wants to push this guy, a former featherweight champion at Cage Warriors. And then for him to get knocked out by a fighter that the UFC really doesn't think much highly of in Luigi Veradimi, would have looked really bad. But, Paddy, responded back. He faced adversity. He battled back, and he was able to knock out Luigi Veradimi in a spectacular way. And, he had a very good promo, in my opinion. I mean, he says that he's a cash cow. This is the new era and stuff like that. Gave me vibes of how Conor came into the UFC. But it also reminded me, like, hey, you know what? Yes, we are in a different era in mixed martial arts. The Conor McGregor era might be officially over, coming soon. I believe he only has about 2 fights left. Don't see him really lasting in the UFC. I think he has other things that he probably wants to cherish, like boxing and investments and, expanding, in alcohol. But, Paddy the Baddy Pimblett looks like he wants to be the real deal. And him fighting at lightweight, I mean, that's a murderer's row. But if he can handle himself, if he could squeeze into the top 10, at some point, I could see him really fighting, and lasting long in the UFC. But personally, for me, I would love to see how he fights against Matt Frevola. Matt Frevola is a very good test. All right, he's, I believe, 7-2 or 8-2. We saw him get dropped by what's it called? McKinney, if I got it. T-Rex, I think his nickname is Terrence McKinney. I can't remember the guy's name, but he ended up dropping him in that Arizona card with that jab, and Frevola ended up crumbling like a pile of Jenga, and it was over. But yeah, I would like to see Paddy the Baddy Pimblett fight Matt Frevola. That would be an excellent test. I mean, Frevola got good grappling. He's a tough, durable dude. He fights somebody like Paddy the Baddy Pimblett. Let's see how the grappling goes. Let's see how the ground game works. Let's see how the striking goes for both, counterparts. All right. Second fight, we had Khalil Roundtree, right, versus Modestas Bukauskas. Now, Khalil Roundtree, the guy's a tank. The guy's a tank at light heavyweight. Honestly, I would prefer him to stay at light heavyweight, because the division doesn't have a lot of people in that roster, and they really should try to build that up as much as possible. I mean, I know on September 18th, in 2 weeks, we're gonna have Brian Spann versus Anthony Smith, and we need more people in light heavyweight to show, like, hey, you know what, this is a really good division. Because at one point it was dominated by John Jones. All right, he relinquished the title, and then the UFC ended up giving Dominic Reyes versus Jan Blachowicz. The UFC kind of wanted Dominic Reyes to win, because how great of a fight that was between Jones and Reyes. But Blachowicz ended up answering through. He beat Adesanya, and now he's fighting Glover Teixeira on October 30th. But, if you have somebody like Khalil Roundtree, who has the skill sets to be a person ranked inside the top 10, possibly has a top 5 type of skill, it could be a problem. But what we ended up seeing was, man, oh man, those oblique kicks are terrible. Now, it just seemed like Modestas Bukauskas was already scared of the power that was being displayed by Khalil Roundtree. Roundtree was just clubbing him. At one point, I think after like the first 45 seconds, Bukauskas' nose was completely crooked. It was like this, and I can only imagine how difficult it was to breathe, knowing that you have blood coming out of your nose, and you're already scared, and the anxiety is building up. And when anxiety builds up, you have stress, and when stress builds up, you're already getting fatigued out. So it's just a recipe for disaster. I knew that the fight wasn't going to last very long, but Khalil Roundtree was timing out the jabs on Modestas Bukauskas, right? And Bukauskas tried throwing a jab, and Khalil Roundtree landed perfectly an oblique kick right on his lead leg, causing Bukauskas to crumble, fall down to the floor, screaming in agony at first. And I don't know. At first, I thought the leg was broken the way that Roundtree ended up, kicking that lead leg, but it was very scary to see. It was one of those things I'm like, wow. Bukauskas, almost could have had his whole ACL torn apart. But luckily, nothing like major happened as far as I know. But Roundtree, has you give him a couple fights, give him a fight against Ed Herman, maybe like Alonzo Metafield. I wouldn't say William Knight just yet, because William Knight, I think he's a little bit above. He's been able to show that he has been able to get at least a couple of wins in a row before, and I want to see Roundtree get up to that point. Give him a fight with Ed Herman. Give him a fight with Alonzo Metafield. Give him a fight with those type of guys, or Devin Clark, where we could test out to see how good is Khalil Roundtree and how far can he go. All right, I don't want to see him face Fabio Cherant or anything like that, because we already saw what happened to him. He ended up getting dropped on a connected punch by William Knight. So don't want to see that happen. But it was good stuff by Khalil Roundtree. Welterweight matchup, we had Alex Morono versus David Zuada. It was a good fight. Went to decision. Morono ends up improving to 20-7. There's really not much to talk about. Alex Morono just seems to be the king of taking short notice fights. Heavyweight matchup in the co-main event. It was supposed to be Tom Aspinall versus, I think it was Alexei Oleinik, or I could be wrong. It could have been the other Sergey, but Sergey Spivak ended up coming in short notice to face Tom Aspinall. And Tom Aspinall has a lot of hype, going behind him. I kind of saw how he was, displaying. This guy's a very quick heavyweight. Has broad shoulders and stuff like that. But the way that he was able to dominate Sergey Spivak, was phenomenal stuff. I mean, the guy is seems like the future of the heavyweight division. I mean, I know we have Cyril Gane, fighting, but I really like what I see with Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall can submit you. He can hurt you from the outside. He could drop you, all right? And he could punish you. Those are all things that I currently want to see with Tom Aspinall. And Tom Aspinall has said that he has no real commitment as of right now to try to jump up and compete for the heavyweight title as of yet. He wants to build himself better, and I love to hear that from fighters, because of the fact that they at least have an idea on where their career is as of this very moment. And if he feels like he's not ready, then let's not give him an extreme jump in competition. I know he ended up calling out somebody. I'm trying to pull it up on my phone real quick. He wanted to fight the guy right above him, and that's excellent to me personally. I don't mind it at all. He wanted to fight Blagoy Ivanov, if I'm not mistaken, or I think it was Blagoy Ivanov, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he wanted to fight Blagoy Ivanov. I don't think he has a fight as of this very moment, but me personally, I don't mind it. If he wants to just take a slow build, fine. That's good. But I would love to see, how he does it against somebody like Augusto Sakai. Augusto Sakai doesn't have a fight as of this very moment, and Augusto Sakai at one point was fighting Alistair Overeem. And if Sakai was going to end up winning that fight, he was going to move into contention in a title eliminator to fight for the heavyweight title. All right, he was probably going to fight somebody like a Curtis Blades or Alexander Volkov or something along that nature, or he was going to be maybe 1 or 2 fights away from winning from getting in contention of fighting for a belt. But I like to see Aspinall do something like that, because Sakai, he seems like to be a gatekeeper at this very moment in his career. Seems like somebody that, if you could get past him, you're able to be in contention of the top 5. All right, and that's where I see Augusto Sakai. All right, or at least in the top 10, definitely top 10, top 8 or whatever. But that's what I want to see for Tom Aspinall. Fight somebody like Augusto Sakai. Bring the better out of you. And then we'll see what real tools you have to compete with your Curtis Blades, your Derek Lewis, your Alexander Volkov, your Jairzinho Rozenstruik's, your Stipe Miocic, if he plans on being around for that long, your Cyril Gans. Those are the type of guys I want to see him fight within the next 2 years. Do I see that happening? Yes, but let's see what Tom Aspinall wants to do with his career as of now. Is he going to just take, just to fight, the guy right above him and above him and above him? Who knows? And then lastly, the main event, Derek Brunson versus Darren Till. Now, I love the matchup originally, and Darren Till was supposed to fight. Actually, both of them were supposed to fight at one point, if I'm not mistaken, Paulo Costa, if I'm not mistaken. I know Derek Brunson was supposed to, but we ended up having the fight. And honestly, I thought this was going to be a good matchup in the aspect of we were going to see what Darren Till can do against somebody who is on a revenge tour. He wants to get closer and closer towards the belt. And he's never fought for the belt. In Derek Brunson, he got knocked out by the champ many years ago. And now Brunson is on a tear to try to fight for the title and beat Adesanya. Well, Darren Till has a huge name in England, right? And if he would have beat Derek Brunson, which I obviously gave it away, if he was to beat Derek Brunson, he was most likely going to get a title shot because of the name and the value that he has within the company. All right. Plus, huge following. Dana loves those type of things. He likes to get behind the people who have a huge following and then push them into upper echelons in pay-per-view cards. And Derek Brunson just showed that, hey, you know what? The wrestling is always going to be here. He exploited a lot of the defense, a lot of the mistakes on Derek Brunson. On Darren Till. Darren Till had very little bad. He has bad defense when it comes to takedowns. Doesn't know how to defend the ground and pounds and stuff like that, and he was just punished. Now I heard reports about Darren Till having an ACL tear and stuff like that. Me personally, I don't want to hear those type of reports just because of the fact that look, an ACL tear, that's nothing to play around with, right? And yes, maybe he had it, maybe he didn't, but I hate to hear one fighter say like, oh, I had like a broken rib, I had an ACL tear, I had a broken leg, I had damage on my left leg or whatever. I don't want to hear any of that type of stuff because of the fact that if you physically got inside that octagon, you knew exactly what you were putting yourself into. All right, you knew exactly what you were going to get yourself into getting inside that octagon and risking injury, but you still did it, and you ended up coming out with more of an injury. I don't want to hear it at all. Derek Brunson ended up submitting Darren Till in the third round by rear naked choke. All right, I actually scored it at one point. I believe it was round 2, a 10-8, because Brunson was just dominating the hell out of Darren Till. And Darren Till had no response to it. Darren Till's right eye almost got swollen shut just because of all those punches and elbows that he ended up receiving. Till did hurt Brunson in the third round, and he just needed to have the fight on the floor, and he needed to fight at distance. But with Darren Till, he's a counterpuncher, and he relies, if you're going to do something, I'm going to counter right back immediately. And Brunson was not playing those games. Brunson was just like, I'm going to just take you down and punish you. And something like what Khabib will try to do. Take you down to deep waters and just brutally hurt you as bad as possible. And that's what ended up happening. So now Brunson, gets the victory, calls out Adesanya. I don't see him getting Adesanya. I just see him fighting most likely Jared Cannonier in a title eliminator. The winner of that most likely fights Adesanya or Whitaker. Actually, not Whitaker, because if Whitaker wins, then they're doing the Adesanya-Whitaker trilogy. But if Adesanya wins, we're going to most likely see the winner of Cannonier versus Brunson to fight for the belt. And then I have no idea what's going to happen next. But yeah, guys, that's what ended up happening on UFC Vegas 36. That's my take. Darren Till, personally, I want to see him fight Uriah Hall, another guy who loves to strike, and that would be an easier matchup for Till as opposed to somebody like Brunson who will try to hurt you. Till then, guys, on Flava Oriana. Thank you for tuning into Flava Oriana's MMA show. Please hit the like and subscribe button, guys, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace, guys, and have a good one.